Grometti. He was third at the Kingwell, and a good run behind two horses who've been in good form this season.
Yeah, no, I was pleased with that. You know, he ran very well in the Fighting Fifth, and he's come back. And he's a horse that hasn't had much match practice recently. You know, he only ran once last season. So we were pleased at Newcastle, and I thought he'd run a huge race at Kempton. But again, he was beaten halfway and came back pretty sick, so we just had to leave him alone. So at least we put that behind us now. Spoke to his owner last night, Max, yesterday, and I think the feeling is we'll let him take his chance on the champion. It's going to be very tough in handicaps off his mark, so, you know, we might as well have a day out and try that, and he'll be another one to go chasing next year.
And I guess in his favour, he's got some very good Cheltenham form over the years.
Yeah, and I just think he'll improve a bit for that run on the weekend. You know, as I said, he's just lacked a little bit of match practice, so there might be a bit of improvement to come, but I'm under no illusions. It's a huge ask.
And what do you make of the champion hurdle pitcher? Hurricane flies there, going back for a third.
And I think our Connor's going to run a huge race. You know, he should be getting stronger each month. You know, only being a 5-year-old, and it is notoriously difficult for them, but it can be done. I think he'll be very close to them, and that's a cracking race. I think there's a great bit of depth at this year. He'd never want the ground as quite as testing as that anyway, but we had to get him out, and I mean we were short. He had a hold up at Christmas where he pulled muscles behind, and we missed a good 2.5 weeks' work. So we didn't need that, but we had to get him out. And I mean, Choc was very good on Saturday. That we sort of nursed him round, and I said, I don't care how well you're going, you've got to keep waiting, and he just let him run on past a couple of horses up the run in or up the straight. So that was pleasing, and the legs are good. So he's obviously got entries in both the Gold Cup and the Ryanair. We'll see how he comes out of this, and I'm due to have a sit down with the owners next week and decide where he might go.
And he's one who's yet to win at Cheltenham, but he's gone there and ran some amazing races over the years. Yeah,
I mean, he was just beaten in the Supreme Novice, and he was placed in an Arkle, and ran a tremendous race in the Ryanair as well. So yeah, he's been a Grand Seven over the years, and it's good to have him back.
And while it must be frustrating when you've got a horse like him on the sidelines, it must be almost doubly pleasing to see him come back and still show the enthusiasm and the ability.
Yeah, his enthusiasm certainly there. In the last sort of week or so, he was showing all the right signs that he was, you know, still really enjoying it. And it's just whether it's going to come a bit quicker than 3 weeks after that. But we'll see. I mean, if I'm not happy, we'll wait and might go to Aintree.
One horse we saw at Cheltenham last year and ran a storming race was GODSMEJUDGE. Is he likely to go back for Cheltenham, or are you going to keep your powder dry for the Grand
National? I need to get a run into him somewhere, and obviously his main target is the National. I just didn't want to run him at Haydock on bottomless ground with virtual top weight last weekend, so I don't know where I'm going to go with him yet. But he could do with a bit of match practice somewhere.
And obviously last season ended on a real high up at Ayr in the Scottish National. He's not been quite so good at his 2 runs so far this season. The last time we saw him at Sandown, he was pulled up.
Yeah, I mean, he was again, it was the time that they were wrong. I mean, he was beat jumping the first. His first run of the season was a very good run, actually, at Cheltenham. Although he only finished 5th, I think he was beaten about 3 lengths for top weight. I thought it was a cracking performance. So, but he could just do with going away. It might be a case we take him away and work him somewhere, or I might even give him a spin around the point-to-point course here just to get the old adrenaline up.
And with his Scottish National win in mind, how suitable of a race is the Grand National for him?
I would think he'd be fine. I mean, he's always, touch wood, been a very good jumper, and he doesn't mind the ground. You know, they've got to take to it. Of course they have, but I don't see any reason why he shouldn't, but we'll see.
Wild Blue Yonder in the process of running a storming race at Ascot. How's he come out of that?
Well, you saw him this morning. I mean, remarkably bright. He was probably the brightest of all my weekend runners, and you know, we'll just get him checked over later in the week. Physio can have a look at him, but he seems fine. Yeah, it's a great pity.
And those 2 falls apart, he's jumping overall.
Well, he jumped super on Saturday to the last, and you know, we've done plenty of schooling with him, and yeah, it's frustrating to say the least.
And he had some really good bumper form as well.
Yeah, it's a horse we've always liked. It didn't go quite right for him last season. That he was due to run in the sales bumper at Newbury, and that was abandoned at the end of March because of snow, and they weren't sure whether they were going to restage it. And I ended up firing him in at Aintree in the champion bumper, which was, he wasn't quite ready for that at that stage. Although he ran well to a point, but he strengthened up through the summer, and he's a horse we've always been very pleased with.
And what are his Cheltenham options?
He's in both the novices as we sit at the moment, but I would imagine we'll probably just leave him in the 2 miler, the Supreme.
Looking at the National Hunt and Chase, Midnight Prayer, 2 from 4 of fences so far, and I'd imagine you wouldn't have too many in the stable have won by 53 lengths on the most recent start.
Yes, it didn't. He had a nice confidence booster around there. He'd been a bit unlucky this season that he was travelling very well at Chepstow in his second run, and the leader slipped up and we cannoned into him, and his jockey lost his jockey. But no, I was pleased with that the other day, and I mean, we've never been that far with him, obviously, but I'd be surprised if he didn't stay. And
he's obviously stayed well this season on soft ground. Could he be a horse who would develop into a Warwick Classic chase, a Welsh national horse for coming seasons?
He could do. I actually said to the owners, if he ran well at Cheltenham, we might sort of go down the GODSMEJUDGE route and go Scottish national. Novices have got a great record in that, so we could look at that.
And it was obviously heavy when he won the last day, but he seems quite versatile. He's got form on.
Well, he's a Midnight Legend, and that, I mean, I've always thought they're slightly better on better ground. I mean, he does go on the heavy, but he wouldn't want fast ground because he's had leg issues in the past. But good ground wouldn't be a problem.
Valdez, a leading chance for the Arkle, Alan. 3 from 3 over fences, and he made an immediate impact as soon as you sent him over fences at Exeter on his debut.
Yeah, I mean, he had schooled really well at home prior to his debut, and we were very excited about him. And I didn't know at that stage really how good he was going to be, and it was a pleasing performance at Exeter. But I think it was Newbury that really, his Nick's run, that really got everyone just sitting up, and he did a very fast time that day. I mean, the idea was to get a lead as long as possible, but he sort of pulled his way to the front of the cross fence, and off he went. And he might not have beaten much, but he did a very fast time. And I mean, Doncaster was satisfactory, but he was only just ready to run. It was our first weekend back, having had the close down, and he wouldn't have done that much work really. But I just felt we needed to get him out, and ground would have been plenty soft enough for him. He does appreciate better ground.
And it was a proper test at Doncaster. The Irish horse, give them a proper gallop.
I mean, for most of the race, I thought we were going to finish second, and it was only the leader sort of tied up, going down to the last, and away he went. But I would be disappointed if he wouldn't. I think we can get him better than he was that day, and I think he'll have to be honest. But
and he was very strong at the finish that day. Is that a credential that you think will stand him in good stead for a race like the Arkle?
Yeah, you've got to get the trip in the Arkle. I've probably got to get the trip in all the Cheltenham races. They go that stride quicker, and you need to get Voidpaw, My Way to Souls, and they had plenty of stamina really. They were probably better 2.5 mile horses really, but you need that I always think to win an Arkle.
And he's a horse you hold quite close to your heart, and he was picked up for a horse who's gone on to achieve what he has for quite a reasonable price.
Yeah, we bought him as an unbroken 3-year-old at Doncaster, and he's a very correct individual, but not many people liked him because of his colouring, and I've got a soft spot for flashy chestnuts, so I think there was only one name going to have him. I kept him for the first season, and he won his bumper, and then we sold him on to his new owners.
And as you touched on, you've had good success in the Arkle. How would you assess the opposition this time round?
I think it looks pretty good. I mean, the Irish look fairly strong. I mean, it's always a strong race, I think, the Arkle, and I see no difference this year. There's a bit of depth about it.
And Dodging Bullet is one of those you've taken on with RAYA's star. He's in the Arkle as well. What have you made of him so far this season?
Yeah, very good. And I mean, I think Dodging Bullets, again, he'll be a better horse if it dries up. So I think the fact that he's been winning on very testing ground, it says a lot for him.
And for RAYA's star?
Well, we'll leave him in the Arkle. I was very pleased with his run in the Game Spirit last week. And he's probably a little bit fresh and gassy. He'd been off for a few weeks, and he sort of pulled his way to the front, going to the cross fence as well. So we'll leave him in that, and he's also going to have an entry in the Grand Annual. We'll see. I wouldn't like to commit one way or the other just at the moment. Gut feeling is if it came up very testing, I might well go down the Arkle route with him.
And he's a horse who then would, from saying that, may stay a little bit further.
Yes, I mean, he's got form at 2.5. I mean, the one thing, his big wins over hurdles have all come in large field, competitive 2 mile off a strong pace, and we've never had that in a chase yet. So hopefully he might be even better if he gets a real strongly run 2 mile, you know.
Smad Place, 2 from 3 over fences so far. An unfortunate start for him, but since then he's not looked back.
Yeah, it was unfortunate. You know, he was coasting clear at Huntingdon and made a mess of the last. But you know, we put that behind him fairly quickly. We got him out the following week at Exeter, and he did it very well. And obviously relieved to get him out last week that Newbury were able to race, and it was perfect. You know, it gives him a little bit of time between then and the RSA, and he's a horse that always benefits from a few weeks between runs.
And he was impressive at Newbury on ground that may not have been ideal.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the ground's a worry with him. I mean, I remember he was third in the finale a few years ago on very testing ground, so it doesn't really. I'm fairly relaxed about ground for him. Either way, he doesn't mind.
He was obviously a very high-class hurdler. Is there always a fear, or not always a fear, but is there sometimes a fear that that doesn't translate to a different discipline, but he seems to have adapted from top-class hurdles into what looks to be a promising chaser?
But he always looked like a chaser, really, and we nearly jumped fences last year with him, and decided we'd give it one more crack at the World Hurdle. And again, he ran, you know, a solid race to be third, but it was always going to be fences sooner rather than later, and really from the first time we schooled him, he was very good.
And he's been to a Triumph hurdle, he's been placed into World hurdles. How important for a horse is Cheltenham Festival form going back for one of the major races?
Well, I think it is, because you find several horses that do come back year on year and seem to run well there. So it's certainly a big plus to have, yeah.
And did you always view him as a horse who would be a better chaser than a hurdler down the line?
Yes, probably. A lot of the French horses can be very good over a fence. And, I mean, he's never been a flashy worker at home, but I always thought that he would enjoy jumping fences, and touch wood he has. Yeah.
And as we get to the build-up to the festival, how would you assess his credentials for the RSA?
Well, I think he ticks a lot of the right boxes, you know. And I thought Newbury, although it was only a small field, I think Paul thinks an awful lot of the second, and he was always holding him, you know. He wouldn't be doing much in front there, but he was always holding him.